Hello! Thank you so much for dropping by this video. I got a very interesting question. Um, what does Bruno say about the origins and location of evil, if anything? That's a deep question. So let's back up a moment. So many people, I believe, my personal experience, this was me, don't believe in God because they don't have a good answer to the question, why do bad things happen to good people? It's the age-old theological question, and so many people lose faith or aren't even open to faith because there's not a satisfactory answer, and because without a satisfactory answer, life seems fundamentally unfair. Personally, I went through this long journey and I gained faith thanks to the teachings of Bruno Groening. But no one explained that to me. So when some bad things started happening, and then some really bad things, and it just kept happening, I actually lost my faith for a period of time. Not that nothing was incurable, that was clear, but just that life was fair or good. And it was only in discovering Bruno's teachings that about this topic, which I've made a lot of videos about the last couple of days. So let me just summarize that only things that serve as a lesson are allowed to happen. And when negative things happen to us, it's because we've brought them on ourselves from past misdeeds. That's the very short version. You can take a look at some videos over the last couple of days. So Bruno Groening provides a very clear answer to one of the most challenging theological questions of all time. In essence, saying life is fair and there is order and harmony. That all of this is a school completely controlled by God, and only things that serve the good are allowed to happen. So once that's accepted, and the perspective of, okay, everything is fair, God's in control, is answered, then we can, to the best of our ability, we're human beings, I'm a human being, I still struggle with this, when negative things happen, to be like, okay, this is a lesson, there is fairness here, God is a part of this, and then seek to find the lesson and to grow from it and learn from it. And so that gives us the answer to how to live life and how to look at life, how to view life. And then this question that was just recently sent to me is, well, okay, so life is fair and even evil serves the good. But why did God allow evil? How did evil get started? So there's two things. One thing is, personally, I don't want to put too much. So I've had this question a million times. I think we all have to some extent. And I don't want to put too much attention on it because I'm reminded of a parable from the Buddha. The Buddha said, if someone shot you with a poisoned arrow, before you took the antidote, I'm totally paraphrasing this, by the way, before you take the antidote for the poison, would you require to know the information of the person who shot the arrow, why they shot it, what village or tribe they were from, what type of poison it was, and so forth and so on? Or would you just take the antidote? No, you would take the antidote. And so the Buddha, in the early Buddhist teachings, he refused to answer speculative metaphysical questions. He was just focused on guiding people to ending their suffering. And questions like this, he would say, it doesn't matter. Follow the path I've laid forth so that you can get out of suffering. And I kind of feel a similar way about Bruno Groening, is he just gives us enough to walk the road. So with that said, to my knowledge, and I'm not saying that's a bad question because we've all had it, like, why does God allow evil? Like, okay, now we understand why God allows evil things to happen. And why on earth would God allow evil itself? To my knowledge, Bruno Groening never, of what I've read, never directly answers that question. And if anyone has any quotes of his, please tell me. He does answer how that, he said that in terms of the human race's dance with evil, that a long time ago, he doesn't say when, human beings listened to a voice outside of the unity, that human beings and God were in complete communion. Bruno said, everything was one. And then the humans listened to a voice outside of this unity and acted on what it said. And then that caused the separation. Well, okay, so now we know how evil entered into the human history, but that doesn't answer the question of where did this voice from outside the unity come from? And this is where I'm not aware of Bruno Groening ever having directly answered that question. And if anyone knows, please let me know. There's, different traditions offer different answers, different spiritual and religious traditions. And to my knowledge, I'm not aware of Bruno Groening ever directly answering it. What I will say is he indirectly answers it in two ways. First way is free will. He points out that human beings have free will, that God doesn't force anything on anyone. And he even once said that in human relations that you shouldn't treat someone like your property. And I think that's the same attitude that, according to Bruno's teachings, God has towards us. God doesn't force us to do the good, but does allow, when we veer from the good, we get to experience the consequences of it. And the second thing is that Bruno Groening said that life is a school, and he even once called it a play school, which is cute. I don't know what the German is, but in English, a play school is like for kindergartners. But um, I don't think that's what Bruno meant by it. But and he said the good game begins with good thoughts, and the bad game begins with bad thoughts. So what I take from that is two things: is that this life and that evil is part of the school of life, and also that evil there's some kind of game to it, game with a capital G, a divine game that's maybe really beyond our human comprehension. That's a very common Hindu idea, that the universe was created from a sense of play, and that illusion is also part of that play. It's the Hindu answer, which maybe is the closest that I've heard to anything. But again, I don't know specifically what Bruno said. On the origin of evil. But I think if we really reflect, if we're given free will, then we have to be given a choice. If we're given free will, like let's say God gives us free will, but there's no evil, then we're just going to choose good, right? So my own feeling is that, again, I'm not answering so much the question of the origin of evil, but why God allows evil. And my own feeling is that God allows it for learning. Bruno spoke of learning over and over, but that's just my sense based on a lot of tuning in and a lot of reflecting on Bruno's words. Thank you. That's a lot of talking. Let's spend a little time tuning in. Observing the body, having the will, the intention to take in good energy. Asking to be shown the next right step. Asking for understanding, how to navigate life. Asking to be shown what we need to be shown. Taking in the good. Well, actually, now that I think about it, Bruno Bruno kind of did answer the question. Not not in exactly the way that we might like it to be answered, but here's what he said. The state of the world is also steered by God. Only things that serve as a lesson for human beings are allowed to happen. In this context, I believe he's talking about actual events that happen to us in our day to day life, but that may be the same answer for why does God allow evil? Is that it's part of a learning. So again, Bruno said, only things that the state of the world is also steered by God. Only things that serve as a lesson for human beings uh, uh, but only things that serve as a lesson for human beings are allowed to happen. But believe me, the good will triumph in the end. That's the other thing to keep in mind. See, many people are think, and me too, why does God allow evil? But we forget that the good will, as Bruno said, the good will prevail, or the good will triumph. If we forget that piece, or if we hold that piece, then evil isn't as big of a deal. And the other thing is, right here, Bruno's talking about the world. The state of the world is also steered by God. Only things that serve as a lesson for human beings is allowed to happen. My understanding is that God's the ruler not just of this world, but of the universe. So we could say the state of the universe is also steered by God. Only things that serve as a lesson for human beings are allowed to happen. So obviously that's not exactly what Bruno Groening said. And so check your own heart to see if that resonates. Christian theology depends. There are some schools of Christian theology that say just that evil was created by God literally as a tool to for us to grow. And there's a very famous Bible verse that Christian theologians who believe in this. I can't remember the verse right now. Give me one moment. The essence of the verse is that evil or Satan was allowed temptation or the fall was allowed to happen so that we could really be raised up or glorified, that it's all part of a divine plan. There are many, I can't say many, but there are some Christian theologians who say that's the message of the Bible, is that evil is part of God's plan to ultimately save and sanctify us and purify us. Ultimately, I think it's one of the greatest mysteries of the universe. And luckily, our dear friend Bruno Groening has given us the tools to not the tools, but a very clear path to walk through life. And also, I believe, to get us to the point where at some point we'll be able to directly see and know how the universe operates. See, Bruno didn't read these things in books. He just basically communed with God and saw the truth directly. And so I believe through this path the path that Bruno taught, each of us will get to that place where we can see and know directly and have our own answers. Thank you so much for joining in. Much love.